Okay. Hi, everyone. Lisa, do you want to get us started and introduce yourself and the AIB team for Pillar One? This is the Pillar One Advisory Committee meeting.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the AIB Pillar One Advisory Committee meeting. My name is Lisa Armstrong. I'm the policy analyst supporting Pillar One, and I will turn it over to our chair, Ruby, to do her introduction.
Hi, I'm Ruby Daniels. I am the chair of the Pillar One Advisory Committee, and I'm also the president of the Maryland State Family Child Care Association and a pre-K expansion grantee, a family child care pre-K expansion grantee. I'll turn it over to Linda because you're next on my screen.
Hi, I'm Linda Gronberg-Quinn. I'm the Department Chair of Teacher Education at the Community College of Baltimore County, and then I'm fortunate enough to serve on this committee. And I'm going to turn it back to Ruby because I'm not sure who's next.
Okay, Bill Hudson. I'm looking at from left to right.
Thanks, Ruby. Hi, everybody. Bill Hudson, Executive Director for the Family Child Care Alliance of Maryland and Project Director for the Aspire Pre-K program.
Thank you, Bill. Kimberly.
Hi everyone, my name is Kimberly Pena Molina and I am the Early Care and Education Manager with the Children's Opportunity Alliance.
Thank you, Kimberly. Sakshi.
Hi, I'm Sakshi. I'm a junior. I go to Long Reach High School in Howard County, Maryland.
Thank you, Sakshi. Gina.
Hi, I'm Gina Hoover. I'm the Early Learning Lead Teacher in Washington County Public Schools and a member of the Pillar One Advisory Committee. Good to see everyone.
Thank you, Gina. Dr. Jennifer.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jennifer Mazza McMahon. I'm an associate professor of early childhood education at UMBC, and I direct the Sherman Center for Early Learning also at UMBC, and I'm a member of the advisory board for Pillar One.
Thank you, Jen. Dana.
Hello, this is Scott and Dana Barnhart. We are the owners of Kitty Academy of Kent Island in Queen Anne's County. We are also grant recipients.
Thank you, Scott and Dana. Dr. Ray.
Good afternoon, evening, everyone. Dr. Rainier Miller, Managing Partner of the Consortium of Accomplished Educators and co-chair for this wonderful committee.
Thank you, Dr. Ray. Do we have Shawanda or is there another AIB team member?
Shawanda has stepped out because we are live and everything is going well. We only call on Shawanda when we are in trouble.
Okay. Thank goodness we're not in trouble.
I know, but we thank goodness for Shawanda.
Okay. So for this meeting, our topic of discussion is the blueprint in action. What are the wins and what are the roadblocks? So we can start with any updates from the AIB regarding the Pillar One. Lisa?
Yes. All right. So for Pillar One, updates and highlights, we want to highlight a professional development opportunity for private providers that service children with disabilities. That is the perfect example of cross-pillar connection as it deals with pre-K students and private providers of Pillar One, and then servicing students with disabilities, which falls under Pillar Four. So the week of 10/15, there's a session including all children and the Americans with Disabilities Act or ADA. It will be held virtually and it meets the pre-service training requirements for MSDE. And registration information can be found on the MFN website. And also this and other access to free childcare provider trainings are available via the Tuesday Tidbits Bulletin sent by MSDE. It has a wealth of information, and I encourage all Pillar One people and those interested and stakeholders to sign up for the tidbits. Also, MSDE has posted open office hours to help provide guidance and support for the Child Care Scholarship Program through next year, December. We have some exciting news in AIB. We are hiring, so we have some hiring updates. We will be recruiting and hiring for the following positions in the near future: fiscal analyst, government relations director, policy analyst, Pillar One, early childhood education, and policy analyst, Pillar Two, high quality and diverse teachers. So applications will be opening soon. In the meantime, if anyone is interested or you would like to recommend someone, you can go to our website and click the Join Our Team link and submit your resume and cover letter to the email there. And I thank you all, especially our invited guests for this evening, for lending us your time and your expertise tonight. That's
Thank
all,
you
Ruby.
so much. Thank you so much, Lisa. That is a
You're
lot,
welcome.
you know, and the PD is an exciting news. So we can sign in through MFN website, right, for that.
Yep.
Yeah, because
Yes.
that was one of our topics last meeting. Rachel London was here and then
Yes.
talking about the children with disabilities. So this is
Yes.
great. And the hiring, we're expanding the AIB family, right?
We're trying to get more people on board to help us. We're small but mighty.
Yeah.
So we're in the growing stages.
Yeah, well, thank you.
You're
So,
welcome.
so that is the update. So we're gonna move to the recap of our September 5th meeting. Dr. Ray, you want to do the recap and the special thanks to our guests?
Of course, I'm in my car and everything is at home.
Oh.
But I'm wondering, can Gina do the recap? I got you next month.
Okay. Yeah. So.
Go ahead, Ruby. You said you had some notes in front of you. I know we had, like you said, we had talked about children with special needs, and my notes are in my office. I apologize because I was at the office for the last meeting, but
that it was a lot of discussion in that meeting. I know we had Chris Push, we had Rachel London with talking about the children with disabilities. And also we had Christina Lopez, who also talked about the challenges of being a mother of a child with special needs and entering the pre-K world. So a lot of those challenges, but of course, now AIB is doing the training through MFN on the pre-service for the special needs students, which is great because we need those more of those professional development for providers, so that way we can tackle the issues and then provide the best service for children with disabilities. Yeah, well, thank you, everyone. I know it's it's a little bit hard juggling work and then, of course, running to meetings like this. So I do appreciate it. So is there anything else that the committee wants to bring up, highlights and feedback from the previous discussion, the previous meetings? If there isn't any, then we can dive down to our guest speakers. I know we have Kimberly Resnick is not here, but Kimberly Penna-Molina will be representing the early care education for the Children's Opportunity Alliance. Because I also wanted to invite Kimberly Resnick because I was at the meeting with the Montgomery Moving Forward, and one of the discussion that one of the program that they have is the EquiCare grant, which addresses the 0 to 3 world, right? Because one of the unintended consequence of the blueprint is a lot of the providers would just opt up to do the pre-K expansion as opposed to doing the 0 to 3 program. So this program guarantees slots for 0 to 3 students and would help them, and find the money is really good because I was helping one of the providers with application, and it's not really that complicated, but from what I heard, only 21 providers applied, so I'm not sure why it's slow to get going. So Kimberly, you want to talk about that and other things that are going on in Montgomery County?
Sure, I do have a slide on that. Could I share my screen? I just have a couple things just to kind of give a quick update on what we've been doing. Okay, so okay, so it says I can't share. I'm going to send a request. If not,
Okay.
I can just
See
talk
if
through.
it works now.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. Let me get this out of the way. Okay, perfect. So like I said, my name is Kimberly Penna-Molina, and I am the Early Care and Education Manager for the Children's Opportunity Alliance. We are Montgomery County's designated early care and education coordinating entity. We were created through legislation as a public-private partnership to really connect community to build a more equitable, accessible, high-quality, and sustainable early childhood system. So the first thing that I would like to report back on is this memo that we created. So in the fall, we engaged child care center directors to really get their opinions about Blueprint pre-K expansion, to understand their perceptions as well as their barriers to participate. And from these interviews, one main barrier we noted was the administrative burden that the pre-K expansion grant posed. So from this, we decided that it would be feasible for us to assist centers along with the help of MSCCA and FCCAMD with help with writing the grant as well as them managing the grant once the grant was awarded. And my colleague Laura Jerome had spoken a little bit more about this project during your last meeting in May. And so really based back on the feedback from the 8 community-based child care centers we supported, we created a memo to the Maryland State Department of Education alongside of the Accountability and Implementation Board, which we're still hoping to get a response back from because we haven't just yet. But the memo really outlines key findings and recommendations that were identified by those 8 community-based childcare providers. The report offers insight to improve accessibility, equity, and support for future applicants. And at the end of the presentation, I will drop the link in the chat for the memo so you can read it in further detail if you're interested. But some of the key findings from this memo was the inaccessible language, the lack of structured support, the budget complexity, timing of grant release and notification, as well as the formatting and submission challenges some providers had. And during these conversations with the providers, they suggested the following recommendations. One would be a community-based organization-specific application that is different from the one that an LEA would use. A comprehensive support system that includes more specific webinars targeted to key areas of the application, such as the budget, which was a really difficult piece for a lot of providers. An adequate application timeline to match March 1st as the decision date to allow childcare providers to recruit more families on the same timeline as their LEA would. A user-friendly submission portal and moving away from a Word document to streamline the application process. And lastly, reducing the application burden for renewing grantees with a shorter and more simpler application process. Okay, and now on to the EquiCare. So Montgomery County EquiCare Subsidy Seat Grant Program is an initiative that was launched by the Montgomery County Department of Health and Human Services and the Early Childhood Services in partnership with the Office of Grant Management. The program is really designed to increase the availability of high-quality childcare for infants and toddlers, which is between that 6 weeks to 36 months. I'm sorry if you hear my dog barking in the background, I apologize. For families earning at or below the 400% of the federal poverty line. And really, it is targeted to families who do not qualify for existing early childhood public programs, such as the Child Care Scholarship and the Working Parents Assistance programs in Montgomery County, because they both require parents to be working. The EquiCare does not. And like Ruby had mentioned, this program really helps to deal with the unintended consequences that have resulted through the pre-K expansion program for those infant and toddler seats. Now, the grants run approximately $24,000 per seat per year, plus a 15% administration fee and a $1,200 professional development allotment. Centers must apply for a minimum of 10 seats, while family childcare providers must apply for a minimum of 2 seats. Providers must also do their own recruitment and screening for the families who do apply. One really cool thing about the EquiCare is that parents won't ever have to do a copay or pay any additional tuition fees. It is all covered by the grant. The funding is available for the childcare providers who apply and get accepted for 3 years, and it is contingent on the performance reviews. I also will drop the link in the chat if you're interested to learn a little bit more about the EquiCare, as well as a great contact information if you have any questions related to the grant. And that is it for me. I'll stop sharing my screen and take any questions if there is. I know I talked a lot and may have talked a little fast, but I will drop both links in the chat for you.
Yeah, so the first topic when you talk about the grant timeline, definitely if we would want more time to get ready for the application process itself, what we're telling people is that if they're interested in applying for the grant for next year, they should start working on it now, improving their Excel level. And the questions are actually, they can get ready for the questions for next year, because what I found last year and this year, they're about the similar or the same questions. So if they can get ready, so that way when it opens up, you're not in a mad panic to apply for the grant. The budget, of course, is a little bit challenging, especially because it's written, I guess, for especially family childcare, because it's written for big centers and schools. So definitely those two are the ones that I'm kind of standoff when you were doing your first presentation. The second presentation about the EquiCare, my question, I was helping some of the providers with the application for the EquiCare, and if they family childcare, if they apply for 2 seats and they have more availability the following year or the year after, can they change their grant application at some point?
That is a great question, and I do not have the answer for that. but I can get you the contact information to over at HHS who would have that information for you.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yes, of course.
Any more feedback and comments from the committee? Okay, great. Thank you so much, Kimberly. Those are a lot of information, and I do appreciate your time. And
Of course.
so
Thank you.
I guess next on the agenda, we have Bill Hudson. He's from the Aspire Pre-K. And Bill?
Thank you, Ruby. I know you got a packed agenda, so I'm going to try and give you a lot of information in about 5 minutes.
Okay.
So we will blow through this. 3 objectives today. One is to sort of give you an update on what Aspire has been doing. 2, to, as a result of that, request that you consider a more formalized relationship or reporting mechanism between our program and the AIB, because, and I'll talk about that in a moment, and then sort of update you on the potential future of the program. So with that, I'm going to launch right in. I know probably everybody's not familiar with Aspire, but just to let you know, when we began our pilot project in 2020, there were no family childcare providers in the spring of 2020 offering pre-K in the Maryland mixed delivery system. MSDE tells us that they might have had 1 or 2 occasionally, but when they got in, they stayed for a year and left. So we chose a different path. Rather than helping providers learn through the grant process, we apply for the pre-K grant, and then they come under the Aspire umbrella. So we handle all the grant management, we handle all the writing, all of those details that Ruby is willing to do, we do for the educators. And then we marry that with an intensive 3-year coaching mentoring model that's loosely modeled after the induction program that's required for new teachers in COMAR for public schools. This year we have 56 funded programs, and that's just in like 4 years. And we also have a preparatory cohort of about 19 providers that'll be ready to join next fall. So we're looking at over 100 potential programs coming into the program next fall, and I think that might even be low. We cover 16 counties in the city of Baltimore. I am going to share that one screen because you hear it, it doesn't quite have the same impact as if you see it. So this is our coverage right now. Each one of these counties in green has 1 or more funded pre-K programs working under the Aspire umbrella. Our goal is to have the entire state in green by 2026. Okay, so where's my screen here? Let's see here. Given that, and I know I was talking to Delegate Solomon today at the MSACA leadership meeting, we've effectively created the statewide hub that's described in HB 1441. Out of 16, there are 20, I think 24, 25 LEAs. We're in 17. And if we get to our goal by 26, we will have a statewide hub in place for family childcare providers within 2 years. I'll also mention that we are working with the Children's Opportunity Alliance in Montgomery County and with a couple of foundations in Baltimore County and the Maryland State Child Care Association on pilot projects to support child care centers for the grant management and the grant writing process. So we're actually now starting to look at hubs for child care centers in addition to family child care. In addition to all that, this year we launched the state's first ever registered apprenticeship for family child care. That is registered by the Maryland Department of Labor, which hopefully will open us up to workforce development dollars. Next month, we begin working with an intermediary of the U.S. Department of Labor to look at converting the Aspire Pre-K program into a full-blown 2-year registered apprenticeship. This summer, we completed a deep dive into the barriers faced by Maryland family child care providers considering pre-K, along the lines of what happened in Montgomery County, but we looked statewide. That process was co-led by Chris Swanson, former executive director of Johns Hopkins Ideals Institute. And I can send you the executive brief on that. The full study is, I think, over 100 pages long. So if that's makes you happy, I can send you the link to the full report as well. This summer, we were approached by the National Institute for Educational Research, or to get the full acronym, but NEAR for those of you who work in this space. They wanted to talk to us about looking at our program to do some longitudinal study around the outcomes for children in family child care-based pre-K programs. We'll see how that goes. This summer, the School of Education at JHU completed an evaluation of the Aspire pre-K program. They also completed a separate research report for MSDE on Maryland's ECE workforce. And out of that report, they recommended expanding the Aspire pre-K program. When we started the Aspire, we brought on coaches from lots of different various backgrounds. There wasn't a recognized framework in place anywhere that really addressed the unique needs of trying to help family childcare providers transition from a childcare business to delivering a high-quality pre-K program. So we've spent the last 2 years building one. We worked with the National Research Child Trends, Dr. Krishana Lloyd, who has a great deal of experience in coaching and around both center-based providers, teachers, and family childcare, to create a 3-year program to help our educators transition from where they are whenever they enter the system, whether they are 2 years with an associate's degree in criminal justice to a 4-year degree or a master's degree, and helping them transition to that high-quality delivery system. High-quality pre-K system. We also began this year developing our community of practice, because we understand, like Ruby, most family childcare providers work alone. Well, I think Ruby does have an assistant teacher, but most family childcare providers don't have that. In addition, we know they work on average 55, 60 hours a week. So family childcare providers are the most isolated of the ECE workforce. So what we're trying to do is build that professional network around them. So when a public school teacher goes into work every day, he or she has a professional network around them for so many different reasons. Family childcare doesn't have that. So we're trying to develop that for our Aspire graduates. So even after they finish the intensive coaching program, 5 years later, 10 years later, they're involved in a professional support network. So given all that, we have learned a lot over the last 4 years. We have, in one way, shape, or form, worked with nearly 100 family childcare providers who are either in pre-K or have an aspiration to get there. And so a 5-minute presentation to this group every year or so, I don't think really conveys all the things we've learned and the questions we're asking about 3 years out. What about this? 5 years out? What about that? And would like to have a little more formal relationship if that's something you can see working into your schedule. And then lastly, I did mention the Aspire program is in jeopardy. We know that the governor required that MSD spend nearly $500 million on the scholarship program this year, which is awesome for the families that are going to benefit from that. However, as we know, that also forced a lot of cuts across the board on a lot of different programs. Credentialing, we're one of those. So we're now working with legislators and private foundations. Kimberly's team has been very helpful to give us some ideas to how do we make sure the Aspire pre-K program gets us to where I think we can be within 10 years, having 1,000 family childcare pre-K programs. And when you look at our numbers, that averages about 6,000 new seats, which translates into essentially 300 new pre-K classrooms in a public school system with no taxpayer dollars spent for construction. So that's my, hopefully, 5 minutes. Any questions?
Any feedback from the committee? Yeah, I just like to echo a few things that you brought up, Bill. Yeah, family childcare. A lot of us work alone. I'm lucky that I have an assistant, and there's a lot of challenges in the pre-K grant. One of them, as family childcare, would be the invoicing. I do have my other co-lead teacher is young, and she is doing my invoicing and the grant administration. So that is a big help for me. But if I'm doing it on my own, I know the Aspire is doing that for the providers, right?
Yep, yep.
Yeah, and also another big thing is the curriculum support, because if I'm doing everything by myself, there's 2 teachers in my program, so we're actually bouncing off ideas on how we can implement the curriculum, and now how we can align our curriculum to the new learning standards, which is new. So then we have to look at everything in a different lens and how we are aligning our curriculum to new learning standards.
And your
And
copious free time.
yeah, and how do we juggle the new curriculum standards? Because now we have mixed classrooms. We have 3 and 4s in our classroom. So then we have 2 standards that we have to kind of prove that we're actually making accommodations to the needs of the 3 and the 4-year-olds. So a lot of work in the pre-K world, but I am enjoying it. It's a wonderful, wonderful program, and it's a wonderful opportunity. The budget template is another challenge for family childcare, and I'm sure for center as well, because we have Dana and Scott here is going to be talking next. And the lead teacher salary is another big challenge for family childcare, because I'm a sole proprietor, and as a sole proprietor, I cannot put myself on the payroll. My co-lead teacher, who's technically an employee, I can put her on the payroll. However, I can't put myself on the payroll. So it's really hard for me to prove how I pay myself. But I need to get paid as a lead teacher. I mean, I can't work for free, right? So I need to get paid. So it's a big challenge. And how do we go about doing that? So last year, I was very creative, and I wrote myself a check, and for my personal checking account, and I deposited to my business checking account with a memo that it's my lead teacher salary for the month of September, for example, and the amount. I guess that was not accepted, or it was really, so we have to kind of juggle and be creative. And how do we satisfy a lot of these requirements? Because we are the special needs child of the childcare community. We're different. We're different. So our needs are different too.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
yeah, so definitely, thank you, Bill. And is there anything else? I know that you're also providing that coaching and mentoring, which is also important. I mean, as individual, I'm getting support from the LEAs, Montgomery and Howard. We have a community teacher that supports the private provider. Montgomery has one, right, Kimberly? Montgomery has a community teacher as well, right?
I'm sorry, it cut out.
Yeah.
What was the question? I'm sorry.
I think Montgomery has a community teacher that supports the private providers, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, so that is, that is valuable, because, in terms of curriculum and how to do things and stuff, the community teacher in Howard County, I always reach out to them and ask them, how do I do this? How do I do that? And at the same time, also data, they can also get the same, if we have this, like right now, I have the same curriculum as the LEAs. So it would be a smooth transition from my program to the public school. And at the same time, we're using the same assessment tool. So that we can use the same data as well. So that's pretty helpful. Well, is there anything else, Bill?
Oh, I was just gonna say, the invoicing questions, honestly, Ruby, I think that's gonna get better. I mean, I get the sense that MSD recognizes that this is a huge roadblock, not just for family child care centers as well. Last year, there was some rumblings that the application process was gonna move online, but it wasn't ready yet. I'm optimistic, regardless of what happens to Aspire, that over the next several years, the application process and the invoicing will move online. Because the issue is scale. I mean, right now, MSD has 75 grantees. If we're not here, next year they'll have 175 before they add anybody else. And so they've got to scale their systems to be able to deal with that. Because the department that struggles to get things out in 30 days, they will struggle mightily if they've got 200 or 300 grantees to deal with. So
Yeah.
I expect that they'll resolve that sooner or later.
Yeah, because that definitely, because cash flow is also a problem for
Oh my
some.
gosh, yeah.
So, is there anything else, Bill?
No, just thank you. I appreciate the
Any
ability.
other feedback or comments from the committee?
I was just going to say, we're very fortunate here in Washington County to have two fantastic providers that are community partners through the Child Care Alliance. And, I do think what you said, Ruby, about the LEA working in conjunction with them. We go and visit them. We have open communication with our providers and stuff. So I definitely think that that's something that just needs to continue with our child care providers, just because, like you said, we always say it takes a village, and we're all in the same village. So I just kind of wanted to point that out. Hi, Bill.
Hi, Gina.
So Gina, do you also do professional development with the private providers as well?
So we have invited them to our professional development. We also go, when we go there, we've taken, our behavior support people in if needed. We are always willing, like you said, to provide our report card or our checklist that we use in pre-K. So, we've shared that with them. We're always happy to help and go out and just, support in any way we can, and, I don't want to say observations, that's not really the word, but like go out and visit with them and just kind of see the kids and have transition meetings. And, so when they're transitioning from their center or their childcare to, either our pre-K or our kindergarten, we try to set those up and stuff like that. But we try to have as open communication as much as possible with our providers, both through the Child Care Alliance and our other, grant recipient and stuff like that. But, I definitely think, like I said, it's definitely an important thing, because eventually they're all going to come to the public school system. So we definitely want them to be as prepared as possible, no matter where they come from. Coming into, whether it's our public school pre-K or our public school kindergarten. But we just want, we want what's best for the kids in Washington County. So it doesn't really matter where they start. We just want what's best for them, going forward. So we try to build that relationship as best we can.
Yeah, I mean, it's important that they have a seamless transition to kindergarten. Now in Howard County, we have a work group that's called Transition to Kindergarten. And the public school, they have a simple checklist that they provide to private providers, family childcare providers and centers, that the children who are entering kindergarten, we just we just do a checklist whether they can do this task or not. And then so that way the kindergarten teacher is better prepared, because they have that initial assessment already from the previous teacher, that they can actually start with. So maybe that's something, I mean, I like that program, and it's been there a while. So if there's anything else, then shall we move to our next speaker? Oh, I forgot, Libby is here. Libby Diamond. You want to say hello?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Okay.
I'm just with the AIB and just always a listening ear. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, Libby is the policy analyst, right, for the AIB. Thank you, Libby.
Thank you. Of course.
Our next guest speaker is Scott and Dana.
Hello, thank you so much for having us. Like we said before, we have a center on Kent Island, Queen Anne's County. We are, other than I believe one of Bill Hudson's families, the only
partner
of
Queen Anne's County
as a private provider. And talk a little bit about the MOU. Private providers, home care, the MOU is a contract. And the MOU covers a lot of regulations and statutes that aren't well explained. They're not attached to that document. There's a statement from the LEA that the provider will comply with all the LEA's policies and education disseminations. Well, those policies are not given to you. There's no documentation, even on the LEA's website, what their pre-kindergarten policies are, what their education practices. The MOU is also really a template. And if you read it, under the LEA responsibility and under the private partner responsibility, there's supposed to be measurables with measurable outcomes. And those are supposed to be revisited on at least a minimum of an annual basis. And the MOU is supposed to be adjusted to resolve those outstanding issues or those deficiencies or work to the strengths. The MOU is also, we are a non-public nursery school. We've had a ongoing MOU with our LEA for better part or longer than 10 years. The current MOU supersedes all other agreements. The current MOU doesn't necessarily meet all the items that we have in our previous MOU. So we asked to have items added to it. We asked to have some items clarified because they don't meet our needs. And every provider is an individual. Every provider does something different. And MOUs are supposed to be written by the LEA in partnership with the provider with oversight of MSDE. That partnership doesn't work if it's not individualized to meet the needs of both the partner and the LEA's relationship. So some of you may know, who are on AIB, may have been on the email chain. We have a meeting next week with Dr. Cook. We asked for dispute resolution after over a month of emails because we refuse to sign the MOU as it's written because it doesn't meet our needs. It doesn't meet the needs of our families. It doesn't meet the needs of our previous agreements. Just so people understand that in the MOU, it is a editable document
And
by
it
its own statement. There is supposed to be a dispute resolution process. There is none, from what I've been told and what we've gotten back. So hopefully meeting with Dr. Cook next week will resolve our issues. And for some of you who may not know this, our LEA in particular has told us that they're only allowed to have one MOU per provider. So we could not renew our previous MOU because that means they'd have two MOUs and they won't honor that. So if you're a provider, make sure you understand what you're being held accountable for and make sure it's in writing and attached to that document. Because, well,
not everything was attached. The original document we gave us, which should have had clickable links, was a scanned in file that actually had another signature on it that wasn't from the LEA.
Also, those documents should be accompanied anyways as exhibits because you should know what you're signing and agreeing to. There's a line item added in there that we'll pay our teachers going wage or comparable wage as the LEA. Not all, but we don't necessarily know what their whole pay scale is. We know what their teaching certificate schools pay wage is, but what do they pay their TA? What do they pay the classroom assistant? What do they pay their non-certificate substitutes? or their teachers, because they have teachers there who are under provisional. They're not fully certified yet. What are those salaries? All right. So we have to be equitable in what we pay our staff, but we also should know ahead of time what that is. And we shouldn't have to wait until after we have an MOU to start the partnership. Because the partnership should be starting before the school year starts, not after September 30th when the MOU gets signed. So I think, it goes back with, I think what Bill Hudson said and some other people said about getting the grant out earlier. So we're enrolling in March 1. Yeah. That's when the MOU should be instituted, March 1. When we have a grant award, that NOGA should be filed with the MOU. And so that's in process. We're working together because, it's a partnership. It's based on communication, empathy, trust, right? We have to work for the best needs of our children and the families and for the community. And so where we are, our little scope of the world, so to speak, we, aren't seeing the support
that you guys are talking
about. We don't, even though we've had a long-standing relationship with it's a paper relationship.
I kind of pushed myself into ECAC. I pushed myself in. I made connections with Judy Center people, and the Judy Center people said, come on, Dana. And that's how I've made myself aware and in the Eastern Shore.
So, but for us being included in our LEA, we're the ones that have to do the force feeding. Back when we had applied for the grant, we went and met with our
with the superintendent, the assistant superintendent, and the head of our early childhood,
and say, how can we partner with you?
Right.
They're like, well, we don't have an agreement yet. So that's, I'm not sure how everyone else's LEAs are working. And so that goes back to the MOU, memorandum of understanding, is know what you're signing, do your due diligence, ask an attorney. We asked ours, he said, don't sign this until all these questions are answered. And they're answered, reliably with clear understanding. And so that's what we're doing. And hopefully we'll, meet with Dr. Cook. I am 100% sure after we meet Dr. Cook, it may take 1 or 2 meetings to do so, and her team, that this will resolve, and this will actually be a better experience for all providers, because I think we're going to break the template and make it to what's meant to be, which is an individualized agreement between provider and school system.
Because honestly, the agreement that was signed by somebody else was a home care provider. So we don't have the same needs. We don't have the same
relationship.
Their same relationship. So there's that piece. Like, there's a lot of pieces missing to the MOU that all providers need. And
we were told, no, you can't have them. We can't edit it.
So that's kind of where we are.
That's where we are. And hopefully, I think I know some of you may have received a letter or a statement that the MOUs are not getting signed by MSD because they're doing a final review. I'm sorry, that's probably because of us. And hopefully it's going to be for the better.
Yeah, I do agree. I mean, a lot of the things that you've said, Scott and Dana, regarding the NOGA, some of the grantees, you get the NOGA in June and you're unsure whether you're going to enroll some kids or not, or whether you're going to accept private pay, because then what if you don't get it? What if you don't get the grant? So that's an added anxiety. You're right. Maybe if we can get the NOGA earlier. So a couple of things, like in Howard, where I'm from, I guess I'm fortunate because the LEAs actually help us out. There's a community teacher that is actually our coach and our mentor, and then they help us with the curriculum. They give us resources. They give us professional development. And also what's more important that they do for us is that the kids enroll in the public school. So they collect all the documentations. So that's not our job anymore. And once we get the letter that this child is eligible for the pre-K because they've already collected all the documentation, then we just interview, and once we accept, then they send us the file.
That's how
That's
it's meant.
amazing. That's how it's
how it's
supposed to
meant to
be.
be. That's literally how this was meant to be. We were told at the meeting, oh, just write for 3-year-olds.
We'll take all the 4-year-olds. You
You were-
teach 3-year-olds. We don't want 3-year-olds. We don't change diapers.
And they have taken a 3-year-old class. They're putting 3-year-olds on buses. One of my 3-year-olds left. We were on the verge of potty training. I ran into mom. She's gone backwards. She comes home in a wet diaper, pull up, whatever you want to call it, wet nappies. And she's gone backwards in that piece. So it's, I wish, Ruby, it was like that. I really and truly do. I have worked for the last 20 years to just have articulation and say, hey, let me tell you about my kids coming to you and let me tell you who not to put together. And I haven't had articulation in probably 12 years.
Oh,
Well,
wow.
at least since 2018. I think 18 was the last year that we had teachers come in for our rising kindergartners.
Yeah.
Was probably the last year that we've had that articulation, that conversation, that, oh, here's who are already reading. Here's who still needs supports with reading. Here's who you don't want to put them together in the same classroom because you'll get nothing done.
Yeah.
And those are important conversations that school systems need. That's information that they need because they have systems in place for those kids who are already reading, right? You don't want a child who's already reading in kindergarten to be bored, right? They need to be challenged because that's why they're already reading. They need a challenge. And you also have the kids that are not quite there yet. They're not ready yet. So you have to, they have the supports, but they have the ability to do so. And if they had the communication with us beforehand, like we used to have, they would have those ready for them, right? We could have that we could give them all of our testing and that we do in our developmentals that we have for them, but they don't want that from us or appear to.
It'd be cool, Ruby, if Howard County would share how they do it with other
Yes.
LEAs.
Love it.
Yeah. So partnership is important. So
100%.
is there any feedback from the committee?
I want to jump in, Ruby, and thank Scott and Dana for coming on and giving us their I like to call it testimony. Because you are doing the work and these are things that we need to hear. And I want to let you know the AIB is hearing you. And one thing I will say too is I am optimistic about your meeting with Dr. Cook.
Us
That is
too.
a wonderful step in the right direction. I will tell you that her and her team are very committed to problem solving and working together on solutions. Her and her team will get to the solutions and help you so that you can be there and help your students and their families. Also, we too would like for counties like Howard County to share their best practices with the other LEAs that are slowly rolling out their pre-K mixed delivery system. And so we are encouraging that. And so that's good to know. And we can see what we can put together on our end so that we can get that flow of information going.
And we're the only one other than Bill's one family provider in Queen Anne's County. So this would be a really small place for you to start.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we
absolutely.
have 12 seats. I think Bill's family has 1 or 2 seats. Family provider has 1 or 2 seats in Queen Anne's County. From last meeting that I heard. So, that's 14 seats out of a whole county with
a lot of people.
Yes. Absolutely.
and a lot of farms. So
Yes. And I want to thank you for continuing to try and to being open to working with your LEA.
absolutely. I mean, that's how it's supposed to be. We
We want what's best for kids
Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
and what's best for families, you know,
Yes.
and one size shoe doesn't fit everybody. And so they have to have opportunity. They have to have choice. You know, some children thrive at school. Some children thrive in home care. Some children thrive in center care, but not every child thrives in all those situations. And that's what the important thing is.
Yes, I agree. Bill has his hand raised.
Oh, thank you, if I may. I get the conversation. We run into it. Every LEA is slightly different. I think the great points, what I would ask the committee to take up to the fuller conversation, the AIB, is to reevaluate the MOU process. Simply tweaking it will help in individual situations. And I get the concern there, and I absolutely agree with you 100%. What I'm thinking is scale, is individual MOUs for 1,000 or 2,000 community partners will stretch a lot of people. I'm thinking about Montgomery County with over 600 family child care providers. Now, not all of them are going to go join the pre-K program, but at half, now Montgomery County School District has to deal with 300 MOUs for family child care providers plus the centers. If you get to the smaller counties, now, you know, Queen Anne may have 10 community providers. That might be manageable, but they're a small school district. And we know every time you change one of these things within certain school districts, it has to bump back up to the legal department. And so that adds time, it adds cost. So I think the whole MOU concept, I get why it's there. I think there's real value there. But this is something that was developed when you had 20 or 30, maybe, you know, community partners. When you've got 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000, I really wonder if this system is going to scale.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. We're nearly in time. So I know it's a work in progress, and the AIB and Pillar One and MSDE, we're a solution-driven team. And we want to look and hear from the community on what's going on, because if we don't know what the challenges are, we would not have the solution. So I do appreciate everyone's time. Thank you so much for coming to the meeting, and we're right at 5:30. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for the time, Ruby.
Thank you.